All right, listeners, get ready for this because today we are diving deep into strategic resilience
Yeah,
in the business world.
absolutely.
Um, we're going to be looking at a paper
Okay.
called Game of Goals, using adversarial games to achieve strategic
All
resilience.
right.
And get this,
Okay.
it's all about
Hmm.
using game theory, like
Interesting.
what you would use for
Right.
chess or Go,
Okay.
to make business decisions.
Yeah. So what this paper really highlights
Yeah.
is that the business world is kind of like
Okay.
a constant game.
Interesting.
You've got competitors, market forces, even
Oh,
regulations,
wow.
all acting like opponents.
So it's almost like instead of just focusing on our own moves, we have to kind of think about how those opponents are going to react to us.
Exactly. You have to think about the whole game, right? And the paper argues that traditional decision-making often misses this competitive aspect,
Okay.
leaving businesses vulnerable.
So they're just not prepared.
Not prepared, no. They use a great example of a telecom company constantly reacting to its competitor.
Okay.
So the competitor slashes data prices,
Oh, wow.
launches a flashy IPO, starts acquiring all these smaller companies,
Yeah.
and every time our telecom company has to react.
So they're always on the back foot.
Exactly.
Oh, I see how that could be a problem.
It's a big problem.
Yeah. So how does this game theory idea help us get ahead of that?
Well, that's where these goal trees come in,
Goal trees. Okay.
which is really just mapping out your strategic goals and breaking them down into smaller, more manageable sub-goals.
So kind of like creating that roadmap for your ultimate success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this applies whether you're a big company aiming for market dominance or whether you're just working on a personal project.
Oh, I see.
Having that structured goal tree helps you anticipate those roadblocks and identify those crucial milestones,
Okay. Yeah.
ultimately reach your goal more effectively.
I like that. So the paper also mentions some specific techniques, like Minimax
Yes.
and Monte Carlo tree search. These sound a little intimidating.
They can be a little bit intimidating,
Yeah.
but let's break them down.
Okay.
So imagine you're running a marketing campaign for a new product.
Okay.
Minimax would be trying to analyze every single marketing strategy that your competitors could possibly use.
Oh, wow.
Every customer reaction,
Okay.
every outcome down the line.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a dynamic business environment, Minimax can just be too complex.
Okay. Yeah.
It's too slow.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, it's almost like it gets bogged down in all those possibilities.
Right. So being thorough isn't always the best way to go.
Exactly. And that's where Monte Carlo tree search comes in,
Okay.
which is much more efficient.
Okay. So how does that one work?
So instead of getting bogged down in every possibility, Monte Carlo tree search uses simulations to focus on those most promising paths.
Okay.
So imagine you're testing different marketing strategies in smaller simulated markets.
Oh, okay.
MCTS learns from each of those test runs.
Oh, so it gets smarter as it goes.
Exactly, and it quickly identifies the strategies that are most likely to succeed.
So almost like how a startup might try out different messaging before they launch their big campaign.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, this approach has actually been used to beat world champions.
Oh, really?
AlphaGo, the AI that took on the Go world champion, used Monte Carlo tree search to outmaneuver its human opponent.
Wow.
So if you can work against a Go master, imagine what it could do for your business decisions.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So it sounds like the Monte Carlo tree search is probably the more practical approach.
Yeah, the research definitely points in that direction.
Yeah.
But what's even more interesting is that this paper takes these concepts a step further.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued.
They introduce this concept of augmented game trees.
Augmented game trees. That sounds...
Yeah, it sounds a little complex, but
Yeah.
think of it this way.
Okay.
Traditional game trees just focus on the actions you take.
Okay.
Augmented game trees consider not just the actions, but also the resulting states.
Okay.
They acknowledge that the real world is full of surprises.
So it's kind of like accepting that even the best plans
Yes.
can be disrupted by the unexpected.
Exactly.
Like if consumer behavior suddenly changes or a new regulation pops up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And here's the real kicker.
Okay, let's hear it.
These augmented game trees can also factor in things like security, compliance, or even ethical considerations.
Oh, wow.
So it makes the model much more comprehensive
Yeah.
and adaptable to the messy reality of the business world.
So it's not just about winning the game.
Right.
It's about winning it the right way.
Precisely.
That's really interesting. So they've built this model.
Right.
It considers all these factors.
Yep.
But did it actually work?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Did it actually lead to better outcomes?
Did it?
So to find out, they ran some really interesting simulations.
Okay, what kind of simulations? Like, did they build like little virtual companies and let them duke it out in a marketplace or something?
It was actually pretty clever. They basically created a simulated environment where A business and its adversary,
Okay.
so that could be competitors, market forces, you name it,
Right.
took turns making strategic moves. And,
Okay.
and they even varied the complexity of the environment
Yeah.
and the number of strategic options available,
Okay.
to really put these techniques through their paces.
So kind of like a chess match, but for business.
Exactly. And the results were fascinating. You might think that Minimax, with its emphasis on analyzing every single move, would have come out on top.
Yeah, that was my guess too.
But that's not what happened. While Minimax did well in some similar scenarios,
Yeah.
it really struggled when things got more complex.
Okay.
It just became too computationally expensive and slow, almost like it was getting bogged down in all those possibilities.
So like in the fast-paced world of business, being thorough isn't always the best approach?
Right? Sometimes it's better to be quick and adaptable,
Yeah.
and that's where MCTS really shined. It
Interesting.
consistently outperformed Minimax in those more realistic, complex scenarios.
Okay.
Remember those simulated test runs we talked about?
Yeah.
MCTS was able to learn from them much faster,
Okay.
quickly zeroing in on the most effective strategies without getting lost in the weeds.
So MCTS is like the agile startup. They're quickly adapting, responding to the market,
Yes,
while that Minimax company is still stuck in, endless planning meetings.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the researchers really, found that this agility is just crucial for success in a constantly changing business environment.
Yeah, makes sense.
They concluded that MCTS is particularly well suited for these real-world business decisions where speed and flexibility are essential.
So this is all incredibly insightful, but I have to admit I'm still wrapping my head around how a business would actually put this into practice. Like, is there a game theory for business app that you just download?
You're right, it's not quite that simple. It's not about replacing human judgment with algorithms.
Right.
It's about using these concepts to enhance your strategic thinking.
So more about the mindset shift, learning to view the business world through this game theory lens.
Exactly. It's about anticipating your competitor's move,
Okay.
identifying potential vulnerabilities in your own strategy,
Yeah.
being prepared to adapt your approach as the game unfolds.
You know what strikes me is that this kind of strategic thinking isn't just relevant for big corporations.
Right?
Small businesses, entrepreneurs, even individuals planning their careers could benefit from this approach.
Absolutely.
It's all about thinking several steps ahead no matter what game you're playing.
I completely agree. The principles are universal.
Yeah.
It's all about making more informed strategic decisions in a world that's constantly changing.
We've covered a lot of ground today. I think I'm ready to move into our final thoughts.
Okay.
But before we do, what's one key takeaway you hope our listener will walk away with?
I say the most important thing is to remember that the business world is inherently adversarial. There will always be competition,
Right.
unexpected challenges, the things you can't control.
Yeah.
But by embracing this game theory approach, you can navigate that landscape more effectively, turning those potential threats into strategic opportunities.
It's about going from simply playing the game to mastering it.
Precisely.
All right, I think we're ready to wrap things up. But before we go, what's a provocative question our listener can ponder as we close out this deep dive?
If even something as complex as business strategy can be modeled as a game, what other areas of life could benefit from this kind of strategic thinking?
That's a fantastic question to leave our listener with. We'll be back after a quick break to wrap up our deep dive into the game theory and strategic resilience. Welcome back, listeners. We've been talking about how game theory can be a really powerful tool
It really
for
is.
making more resilient decisions
Yeah.
in the business world.
It really does make you think differently
It does, yeah.
about how all these actions
Yeah.
and reactions are connected
Yeah.
and anticipating those roadblocks
Right.
before they even show up.
Yeah, it's been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has.
But as we wrap things up, is there one key takeaway you want our listener to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that a game theory mindset isn't about becoming a ruthless calculating machine,
Right. It's not about abandoning your values
Right.
or being obsessed with winning no matter the cost.
Exactly. It's about empowering yourself
Okay.
to make informed strategic choices.
So you're using those tools to kind of navigate this complex world.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that every decision you make is part of a larger game,
Okay.
and it has its own set of rules and players
Yeah.
and potential outcomes.
Right.
And by understanding those dynamics,
Yeah.
you can make choices that lead to better outcomes.
And like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
this isn't just limited to business.
Absolutely not.
Whether you're negotiating a deal,
Right.
leading a team, planning your next career move,
All of it.
all of it, this strategic thinking can really come in handy.
It's about being mindful
Okay.
and deliberate in your actions
Yeah.
and aware of those potential consequences both intended and unintended.
That reminds me of what you said earlier about viewing different areas of life
Mm-hmm.
through this strategic lens.
Yes.
It's a powerful concept.
It really is. It challenges you to step back and ask yourself,
Yeah,
what game am I playing?
right.
What are the rules?
Yeah,
Who are the other players?
okay.
What moves can I make to achieve my goals
Yeah.
while staying true to my values?
I love that it's about bringing intentionality and awareness to every part of your life.
Absolutely. And that's a skill that can benefit anyone,
That's true.
regardless of their industry background aspirations.
I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah,
It's been such an insightful conversation,
it has been.
and we've given our listeners plenty to think about.
Lots to chew on.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
Yes.
and keep playing the game strategically.
Strategically, that's it.